Hey kids, it's time for another episode of Comically Speaking with SPAZ. On this episode, we're going to take a field trip. That's right, we are going to leave the confines of the small little room and we are going to visit a comic store. More specifically, World's Best Comics and Toys in Sacramento. The reason why I'm doing this episode is obviously because anybody who watches these comic book videos who are interested in comic books like to sort of, see how things are on the other side. But also, I'd like to maybe introduce some of my music friends to the comic book store experience, very much like the record stores of the 70s and 80s, where you converse and you learn and you find, and it's a whole lot of fun. So come along with me, and this is going to be a whole lot of fun. Sit back, relax, and maybe grab your favorite beverage and snack and enjoy. Hey everybody, Spaz here, and for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a kid, I used to get really excited going into record stores and then later on comic stores because it was always an adventure. You never really knew if you were going to find anything or what you were going to find, actually. You may go in and say, oh, I'm looking for this particular thing, and then walk out with three completely different things. And that's records or CDs or comic books or DVDs. And it's always been an exciting thing for me to do, going out into the wild and searching. I mean, sure, ordering on Amazon is perfectly fine, but, really it's, I guess, the thrill of the hunt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into one of my favorite local shops, a place I always stop by on Wednesdays because it's New Comic Book Day. We are going to visit World's Best Comics here in Sacramento. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. And I hope that maybe it inspires you to maybe check out, maybe hitting your local comic shop, because it really is fun. It's an adventure. If you're, an old guy like me who loved to go into record stores in the 70s and the 80s and, loves to hit new and used record stores even today, it's just a different experience in some ways, but in most ways, it's very, very similar. So I hope you enjoy this, and we'll see you at the other end of the video. Thanks. And here we are at World's Best Comics and Toys on Watt Avenue in Sacramento.
From the age of 6 to 11, I love reading comics more than anything, and I would get a new one almost every Friday in the early evening when my dad came home from the hotel where he and his friends had been drinking. He brought me a brand new comic, and they were always drawn and written so well. I love Disney and Batman and Beano, War Picture Library, The Phantom. They were all so good. Those comics were stronger than heroin. All of those heroes and heroines, I wished I could have been in one, 'cause they were always drawn and written so well.
A lot of the comic shops are set up the same. You're going to have, these are the newer DC titles. A lot of great series, as you'll notice. There's many different Batman. In fact, here's a facsimile edition of an original Batman, and this features like all the original ads. There's all these different Batman titles, and these are all alphabetized. House of Secrets. It's the first appearance of Swamp Thing. That's a facsimile edition. And these are all alphabetized. You see there's a lot of Superman and Supergirl and all these wonderful things. And then you get to the new sections. These are all the new titles that came out. And I'm looking at them now with you for the very first time this week. Who shot decoy corpse of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen? Not a super big week. Here's new Archie down here. Here's independent titles. Here's Archie versus Predator. That's really going to appeal to the little kids. New Kiss title. It's actually issue 5 of the new series. Issue 1 of a brand new Napoleon Dynamite. Second Coming. That goes in my stack. And these are new releases of Marvel. There's a lot of different Spider-Man titles. Here's another facsimile edition. There's House of X and Power of 10, which are new X-Men titles. Savage Sword of Conan. Here is a new Spider-Man series written by J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams' son. And you'll notice variant covers. This is the one I'm going for, it's with the die cut. Here's part of the True Believers series, where they reprint comics with new ads, but they only sell these for $1.
She's my super girl. She's super high. She's got super speed. That's what I want. She's super sweet. Bouncing to a beat in the comics of me. And I'm waiting for her to level up before the light turns green. She pulls up in the line.
This is Frank Carney. Frank, how long have you been working here?
A little over 4 years now.
A little over 4 years.
Yeah.
And what's your title? Are you just an associate?
Yeah, I guess so.
Now, Frank, do you remember the very first comic that got you into the collecting business?
I know Dave probably won't like this, but it was Spawn that got me into comics.
Was there a particular issue?
It was my first issue was probably issue 23. Yeah,
Okay.
and that was my first one I ever got. My mom bought it for me actually at World's Best when it was in between Tower Books and Records. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
It's a cool mom.
Yeah.
Now, do you still have that one issue?
I do. I still have that same one.
That same issue?
Yeah, and then a couple of years after that, I came back and bought a few of the trade collected editions of Spawn.
Oh, okay.
And that got me even more into it. Yeah.
And are you still collecting Spawn?
I'm on now for the 300, the Road to 300 that they're doing, and I have a few gaps. I have up to 265. Issue 265, but then I need to fill in these gaps to lead up to 300.
All right, and is there any particular series now, apart from Spawn, that you're into?
Yeah, Silver Surfer Black is really good. I'm really liking that one, and the history of the Marvel Universe is actually really interesting. Yeah, and for the DC side, I think Martian Manhunter is really the top one I'm liking right now, just because it's Riley Rossimo doing the art.
Oh.
I just haven't been able to sleep for the last 2 nights. Have you tried hanging from the rafters with your head down like I do? I'd like to, Grandma.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man.
Robert, how long have you been working at World's Best?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. Kind of always, it seems. I'm friends with Dave, the owner, and I've kind of always helped him since I've known him since probably the late 80s. And then I started doing weekends. I don't even know that. Maybe 8 years ago.
Well, looking back at that, how did you initially get into comics? Was there one particular comic that really caught your eye? That sort of started you on that collecting path?
No, I was 3 and I was sick, and my dad got me a Gold Key Flintstone comic, and I just read it over and over and over and just started getting them from then. Early on, all I bought were really cartoon ones, like Gold Key, and then I'd sometimes get older ones like from flea markets and stuff, because this would have been early 70s. So I'd get Dell comics too. And then sometime around 72, 73, I picked up Current Action off the spinner rack and started reading DC heroes at that point, and then later added on kind of Marvel, probably a few years after that. So I've been doing it almost all my life.
Right. And do you actually still own any of those original comics that you used to have?
I have almost all of the comics I originally had as a kid.
Okay.
They're all beat up, and a lot of them don't even have covers anymore because I wasn't very careful. But yes, I have almost all of them.
All right.
Including that first Flintstone.
Right. And okay. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. And I'm sure that I'll be seeing you every time I come into this gosh darn place.
If it's the weekend, yes.
Yeah.
That's the only time I'm here.
Yeah. Robert is the weekend guy. And included amongst all of these back issues are ones that I've had my eye on. I've got my eye on things, a few of the big boy titles, you know, the old little coloring books or activity books when we were kids. Lancelot, Link, Secret Chimp. And the one I've had my eye on for about a year, this John F. Kennedy book. Definitely want to pick this up. You can find gems like this here at World's Best Comics and Toys. Gems like Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge. This looks fantastic.
Sergeant Rock is going to help me.
The joy of living
Toys for Tots.
is in the giving.
Toys for Tots.
So let's give lots of toys for tots. Toys, toys, toys for tots. You can be a Santa if you will lend a hand. Yes, sirree, there never will be an empty stocking in the land. Some have too many, some haven't any.
If those who have give those who haven't, oh, what a Christmas day. The Marine Reserve will help you fill your sleigh with lots and lots of
Toys for tots, so give a little toy today.
And I'd like to introduce you to Dave Downey, the owner of World's Best Comics and Toys. Dave, how long, well, actually, when did you start the business?
Started the business in 1985.
Now, why did you choose comics over a record store or anything else?
Actually, what happened is I opened up with a guy that wanted to do records, and he said, well, why don't you do comics and I'll do records? And I said, okay. And then after a year or two, he got out of it, and I just stayed with it.
And you were actually a few doors down. How long have you been in this particular spot?
I've been in this spot since 1999.
Since 1999. And what do you feel is the current trend in comics? I mean, so many people are always talking about how comics will die out or CDs are going to die out. But to me, every time I walk into any store, it's so much stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah. All the superhero stuff has always been the strongest, but what really keeps things going is the variety of things that are out there. Well, Walking Dead was the hottest comic for the longest time, outselling X-Men and Superman, Batman. It was my number one seller, and not superhero whatsoever. That zombie comic was the number one seller. How weird is that?
Yeah, and was there a big reaction when they finally did their last issue?
Yes, there was a lot of shock with my customers and just throughout the industry. They tricked everybody by soliciting issues beyond the last issue so that no one knew that was going to be the final one.
Do you think that they actually planned it to be the final one, or was it just sort of a rash last-minute decision?
I think it was a long time in planning, and Kirkman just didn't want to tell anyone. He wanted to be his little secret.
Yeah, exactly.
He tricked us all.
Now,
nice job.
Now, the big question is, what was the comic, or actually, do you remember the comic that first got you into collecting?
Yes. It would be Dennis the Menace. I started with Dennis the Menace and Archie comics.
Oh, did you?
Yep, those are my favorites.
And do you still collect Dennis the Menace and Archie paraphernalia when you can?
Yeah, when I can. I still am trying to fill in some holes in my Dennis the Menace collection. I buy Archies when I think the cover looks funny. Yeah, and then I get those.
Do you still have the originals of the things that you bought so many years ago? The ones that you actually owned back then?
I don't, because I was an Air Force brat, and every time we'd move to another location, my parents would say, like, well, get rid of all your stuff, and we'll buy you new stuff later. And I was good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now I wish I had all that old stuff. Not that Dennis the Menace is a super expensive book or anything like that, but I would just like to have my own original stuff.
Yeah, so you haven't located those originals?
I've repurchased
you have.
The ones that I used to have.
Okay.
Yeah, but as far as them being the ones that I picked up off the stands way back when, no, those are gone.
Yeah, and throughout the years, what has been your favorite title? Or maybe the favorite character?
Favorite characters? I'm big on Spider-Man. I've always liked Spider-Man.
Does it get confusing to some of the customers because there's so many different Spider-Mans?
It confuses me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure it gets people confused.
Yeah.
I think the only way to do it is just focus on your favorite version of Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise you'll go a little nutty. Although things like that Spider-Verse where there's a million Spider-Man, that's fun too.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
That's it, gang. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Comically Speaking with Spaz. Until the next time, fin, fan, foom!